I'm Tester and Maritza Giorgio. Can everyone hear us? Okay, so here's the deal. We are recording this episode of Grounded live with our first in-person audience. This is scary.
Yeah, don't screw it up.
I'm gonna try not to. This is very scary because I actually get very nervous speaking in front of real people. You guys are pros at this.
Weren't
You
you?
never spoke in front of real people
Weren't
as
you?
Not
a
a lot.
journalist?
Not a lot. No, I always had a teleprompter. But we are recording this episode. We have our online audience here on the computer. We have our in-person audience here at Brothers Tapworks. That's Steve Bullock's bar. This is former Montana Governor Steve Bullock, former U.S. Senator John Tester. I'm Maritza Giorgio, and I was a longtime journalist here in the state. And John and I both lost our jobs about the same week last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I lost my job long before, so
Yeah, that's
Your
okay.
your microphone is way louder. Is that because you own this place?
that's because I am loud.
Oh. Okay, so here's the deal. We've never had a live in-person audience before. We're gonna go over some headlines like we do at the start of every one of our shows. We're gonna let
I've got a question before it
Oh,
gets on.
yeah.
How many people in here subscribe to Grounded?
Oh.
All
Woo!
right. Hey, that's good. Thank you very much. Thank
That's
you.
great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's good.
That's good. Yeah, we
It's
had
good.
we had some hands.
What? It's good.
So, we're gonna go over some headlines like we do in the beginning, but we're gonna let Governor Bullock join in on that and provide his commentary. Then we are going to continue the conversation with Jeff Mangan. We've had a lot of people ask us about Citizens United, campaign finance, and there's been a lot of attention in the last week, especially nationally, on what's happening right here in Montana. We've had people from across the country ask us to weigh in on this and tell people about it and what's happening and what they can do. So we are going to have that conversation and we will take some comments at the end from our in-person audience, and we will also be live on our Substack and YouTube channels where we have hopefully questions coming in. We already have a comment. Tester and Bullock, a better time in Montana, they say.
You
So
got it.
that's
And so you know, for those of you that don't know, and most of the folks in this room probably do know, Jeff Mangan is the brains behind the initiative to keep corporate money out of our elections here in Montana. So we'll be hearing from him.
Can I also add? So this is the first time we've ever done a live podcast, and
Yeah.
David Axelrod and Michael Murphy have what's called Hacks on Tap, and they've always said they want to come to Montana. But in case you can see mine, Axe and Murphy, John Tester and Maritza are much better than you ever would.
Yeah. And we're doing it.
Hey,
We are
thank
doing it in a bar too.
gonna-
Okay, so
I'm gonna tilt
it's
this
good.
up so we can get our okay. There we go. Got some headroom there. So let's start with some headlines. Everyone sound good? This story is everywhere. I'm sure you've all heard about it if you're watching the news. Last week, a Washington Post report came out. It's putting a lot of focus on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. And the US launched a missile on a boat believed to be carrying drugs. Okay. And as the smoke cleared, this report says that commanders spotted two survivors clinging to the side of a boat. And that's when the Washington Post reports that the commanders ordered a second strike to kill everybody, which was allegedly what Pete Hegseth had ordered. Today, the White House basically confirmed that the US ordered the second strike. Now, we are not in an official war with drug traffickers. Even if we were, legal and military scholars say this would be considered a war crime. And then I should note that Hegseth doesn't really appear to be worried about this because he put up a political cartoon. You'll see it on the TVs here in the room in a minute this weekend, kind of making fun of the whole thing. But it does seem like the Trump administration is trying to put some distance here between the White House and Hegseth. And even Rand Paul had some comments basically saying, this is not permitted. So, what are your thoughts?
Marisa, back up a little bit. The White House is trying to put space between themselves and Hegseth when the White House says, "Yeah, we did this."
Well, at first they were this weekend the president said,
I don't know anything about this, is what the
That's good.
president said
I
last
don't know
night.
anything about this, and I wouldn't have made that call. And then today the White House confirmed, yes, that was our order.
You go first, Governor, and then I'll chime in if you leave any scraps for me.
So here's where the cup is half full from my perspective. Like, it's more than Rand Paul, right? It's Roger Wicker, who you served with. It's the same on the House side. What's his name? Mike Rogers. So both
Mm.
Armed Service Committee Republicans. This is probably the first break other than the Epstein where Republicans said this administration isn't doing something right. And think about that. We're almost a year in. So there's, I guess, our one ray of sunshine is that maybe a few of the Republican electeds will start getting a spine when things aren't quite right. Um, and then the other piece is like, as you noted, Maritza, that I think you said we haven't declared war, right?
And it hasn't been approved by Congress.
And I've heard some say, well, it's either a war crime or it's murder.
Murder.
So hopefully this is something that, look, irrespective of partisanship, folks say we're better than this as a people and a country. And hopefully now you'll have some Republican members actually do some of the oversight that they should have been doing all year long.
Yep, and they call for an inquiry, which is a giant first step, but it isn't really the step they should be taking. They should have hearings on this. They should have hearings, and they should bring Hegseth in front of the Armed Services Committee in the House and the Senate, chaired by the two individuals you just talked about, Governor, and let the people ask questions about why this was done. I can tell you that from my perspective, what has set this country apart from every other country in the world my entire lifetime and for generations before is that we have a respect for life here in this country. In third world nations, they don't have that respect for life. And when you see this kind of crap going on, it goes totally against what we are as a nation, and it doesn't make any sense. We won't get into the point about why are they using these methods and trying instead of trying to catch these folks and getting information out of them and then using that information to try to stop the flow. No, they're just hitting them with bombs, probably pretty damn expensive bombs, quite frankly. And then when there's one or two clinging to the ship, we're going to kill those bastards too. And it's unbelievable that the White House is behind this. It doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't say that. It's totally believable the White House is behind this because we've seen a lot of the stuff that they've been doing that you shake your head shake your head at, and then you go, "Oh my God, that's right. Yeah, he is president."
And this weekend, when asked about this Washington Post reporting on the Sunday shows, a lot of the Republicans said, "Well, those are anonymous sources, and there's no proof." But unless I'm wrong, I haven't seen any proof of drugs on the boats.
Well, I haven't heard about that, but I also heard those same representatives say, "Well, if this turns out to be true, it's a war crime."
Right.
Well, so the White House has admitted to it. Get them in, have hearings, hold people accountable. That's what Congress needs to do. That's what Article 1 of the Constitution says to do. As the governor's already pointed out, Governor Bullock, this is the first time, well, there's been a couple times, but this is really the first time where they've actually gone against what the president's done and said, this doesn't quite pass the smell test. So we'll see.
Okay, so here's the next big question. This has all been justified with the White House saying this is to stop the illegal flow of drugs into our country. So, why then would the president pardon former Honduran president, the president
Go
who
ahead,
was
Sam.
at the center of a huge drug case, found guilty of conspiring with drug traffickers to flood the U.S. with cocaine? Even Senator Bill Cassidy, who is a Republican in the Senate, said, "Why would we pardon this guy?"
Great question, Bill. And by the way, Cassidy is a decent man. I shouldn't say that because he's running for reelection. It might be the kiss of death. But the truth is Cassidy is a decent man. And I don't know, maybe it's for the same reason they gave 20 or $40 billion to Argentina. Maybe certain people have investments in Honduras and they want to prop those investments up. I don't know, but I can tell you it goes absolutely counter to what they're saying. On one hand, they're saying, drugs are a big problem. We're going to stop it, but we're going to pardon the guy that said he was going to drive it down the snouts of what they call them. That's a tough question because they didn't ask this ahead of time.
I don't know what
But
you're talking about.
the president of Honduras during his
Oh,
trial
I have this.
said he was going to jam it down the throats of
I have this.
what
Hold
were
on.
they called?
The
What were they?
the gringos' noses.
Gringos. That's it.
Stuff
the Gringos.
drugs up the gringos' noses.
Up the gringos' noses. I mean, that sounds pretty wicked to me. This guy should not be pardoned, but neither should the January 6th people who stormed the Capitol be pardoned, as well as a whole bunch of other folks that this president is pardoned.
Yeah, think about so yesterday he said, I know nothing about these bombs are the killing of individuals on these ships. And the president justified this pardon by saying, I had many friends asking me to do so. And to the senator's point, and I guess it was many friends that said, well, let's pardon the head of one of the biggest crypto exchanges that are carrying the Trump money as well. Or another donors, basically, someone that just gave to the Trump administration that ran a company that he donated to right thereafter. 17 plus pardons this year, most of them around January 6th or January 2020, but it's also completely blowing up the system, right? The system used to be the DOJ, the lawyers would actually have some role in it. DOJ doesn't even know when he's going to issue a pardon. Or again, it used to be when you pardoned, if you committed fraud, you still had to pay restitution. You still had to pay the individuals that you had defrauded. That's gone as well. So I don't think there's any real justification that I've seen. So he has many friends say, oh, we should just let this guy skate.
We had an entire episode about this with former pardon attorney Liz Oyer. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, go watch that episode because she brought up just incredible points about how it's so different at her job.
Little self-promotion, but it was a damn good podcast.
Hey, it was a good podcast.
Aren't they all, though? Really?
Yeah. Do you know how many of you have seen Governor?
I wake up watching them. I go to
Yeah.
sleep listening to them.
I knew it.
good.
I knew it. Okay, so
And he just burnt down Axelrod Murphy, so that's okay.
yeah, that's right. That's right. As a journalist, I have to talk about this because over the weekend, the White House published on the official White House government website, whitehouse.gov, what they're calling a media bias tracker. It lists actually individual reporters from CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Reuters, and they labeled them hostile or biased. They're targeting these journalists by name. I don't have to tell you what happens when the White House targets people by name. And critics are saying this is what we see in countries like Russia, and just a real clear effort to muzzle any kind of dissent here.
Okay, where to start? I'm going to start with a Montana story. All right, can I do that?
Please.
So in the crowd today is Mike Dennison. Mike Dennison, it's good to have you here. Mike Dennison is one of the best political reporters the
That's
state of Montana has ever had. And this might surprise you, but I don't think it surprises Mike Dennison. There were many a nights I went to bed and I was pressing Mike Dennison for the story that he wrote. Why? Because I didn't want that story wrote as a public official. Dennison's job was to hold the public officials accountable. I was a public official. I didn't want that story written. This is part of our democracy, folks. And we have seen what's happened to press, local press. It's been totally pretty much annihilated long before this president got in, and he's adding to it. And when you have the national press that's afraid to ask questions because they're going to be called out by name, somebody needs to stand up and say, this is a bridge too far. If we're going to have a democracy in this country that works, we have to have freedom of the press. And depending on who the story is written on, I guarantee you, every story will have somebody that says, that was totally unfair. That reporter should have never written that story. And in those cases, by the way, those are probably pretty damn good stories. And so the president, once again, is on the wrong track as far as preservation of democracy in this country.
Senator Tester and I don't agree on everything, but we both agree that we didn't always like Mike Dennison. And look,
I
almost
love Mike Dennison. I
yeah,
can say that.
of
He's
course,
my
because
competitor.
you're part of the
He's
club.
my competitor, though.
You're part of the club. Yeah, well, look, like absolutely, John. There were times where I'm like, I cannot believe that they're going to write this story. That's part of the accountability and what every elected official should actually face. And the notion that, look, where are we right now? Again, not even a year in, managing the press pool, saying it used to be actually the journalists that would make the decision of who was going to be part of the press pool and travel with the press. Saying certain journalists can't come in. The FCC saying ABC and CBS, we might revoke your license because we disagree with this. the lawsuits against 60 Minutes for defamation. Defamation against a public official is damn near an impossible standard to meet. So this is one where, look, not everybody always loves journalists. You can disagree with them, but when we lose that sunshine and transparency, if a journalist is saying, I can't report this because I might upset the elected, we as a country are in a lot of trouble.
And that's happening. That's happening in newsrooms across the country right now. I have a lot of friends in both national newsrooms and local newsrooms where that is a conversation happening weekly.
Yeah, it's not good.
And it's something, though, to bring also closer to home, because the senator mentioned it as well. I think what we have one local printed newspaper in the entire state right now. And look, we need to make sure to support the journalism that exists, certainly. But it's also concerning because at the end of the day, um, the local printed newspaper wasn't necessarily for all of you that would come out for something like that. It's for the person that wanted to read the sports page and then learned a little bit about what was going on at the school board meeting or government and got frustrated. So we need to continue to support journalists and journalism, not only nationally, but here at home in Montana as well.
And that's why you should subscribe to the podcast Grounded.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty good, huh?
He's making up for lost
Look at
time
that.
tonight. We have a comment on our Substack that says, even in Massachusetts, we don't have many newspapers. It's true. It's happening across.
Across the country.
Okay, so there's a renewed debate around our withdrawal from Afghanistan. Really awful story. Oh,
Sorry.
Ooh,
Mic
okay.
drop.
Mic drop. Really awful story. Two National Guard soldiers were shot in Washington, D.C. last week. One of them died from their injuries, Sarah Beckstrom. Alleged gunman is a refugee from Afghanistan who worked in an elite counterterrorism unit, actually helping the United States fight the Taliban on the ground. There's a lot we still don't know here. There's a lot moving through the court systems. But here's the conversation that took place on the Sunday shows. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem blamed Joe Biden and said that this person was not properly vetted under the Biden administration, even though he was granted asylum this year by the Trump administration. This also comes after the president signed something that did anything that President Biden signed with an auto pen. So, what are your? I'll add to that. Over the weekend, DC Metro Police were escorting National Guard troops around DC, and they just ordered 500 more Guard troops into DC.
So we'll start with the fact that if Biden did such a horrible job and the auto pen stuff was illegal and this person wasn't vetted correctly, why did the Trump administration give him the ability to stay in this country? Because that's what happened. I mean, talk about playing people for fools. On one hand, they're saying Biden is horrible. He did all this stuff and he did it wrong. And if that's true, why would you accept any of the work that they did? Why would you go back and do it over again with your own people that you think are competent? And that's number one. Okay, that's number one. But actually, even before that, Maritza, this happened the day before Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's correct. Can you imagine what this family's going through right
Right.
now?
Right.
With that guardsman, both that got shot, the woman, what the other person has or not, should have been having Thanksgiving with the family. And what should have happened is they should have reinstated the cuts that Doge took out of the government to train police officers how to do their job because, quite frankly, they're the ones that should be responsible for this. And they've taken that money away from both urban and rural America because of DEI or some other goofy damn issue. And they've replaced them with our military. As China and Russia are going crazy in this world, and this president's not paying attention to them. I can tell you that for a but instead we're focused on domestic problems and in putting our guardsmen on the street to do the jobs of police. It's just wrong on so many fronts.
And I agree with the senator, first of all, um, recognize the tragedy, right? That I was commander in chief of the Montana National Guard. We asked so much of our soldiers and airmen. And there are two West Virginia families who will be forever changed as a result of this. But then it's also the notion that putting our National Guard, like those folks aren't trained for law enforcement.
correct.
And
Right.
most of them actually aren't doing law enforcement. They're doing beautification of communities. They're having that presence.
You've been to DC in the past month, right? Yeah, I mean, the 3 of us
Felt
all
safer than ever, Maritza.
the 3 of us have all been to DC the last few months, and I never saw them doing anything more than
Yeah.
just standing on the corner, helping with people, like you said, talking to people walking on the street.
And think about also like the other challenge, because you look at like this has happened in California, Oregon, Illinois, Tennessee, and courts time and time again has said this isn't what we use our National Guard for. Right? It was, I think, a week before this tragedy, and a DC court said
Yeah.
this shouldn't happen
Right.
either. And we ask so much of our National Guard members, which are citizen soldiers, like the last thing that they should be doing is policing their own in their communities. So I also agree, like, look, if we need law enforcement, let's have law enforcement.
Put more cops
And
on
let's
the
make
street.
sure to fund cops on the street.
Yep.
But let's not use our National Guard as basically just for pictures more than actually keeping communities safe. And that's what's happening here.
And wouldn't you think it'd be a good idea if those people that have back the blue signs up actually do back the blue?
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually do put more cops on the street and know what they're doing, well-trained police officers. I mean, it is just it's so crazy. It's, and it's sad because, um, a good person's life was lost for
Mm.
sure.
20 years old, too, 20 years old. Everything we're talking about is ending up in the courts, so why stop there? Let's continue with this. Another blow to the Trump administration today. An appeals court ruled that Alina Habba has been serving unlawfully as the U.S. attorney in New Jersey.
No way.
She was never confirmed by the Senate, nor was she appointed by district trial court judges. Those are the normal 2 paths for this. This ruling comes after a federal judge found that Lindsay Halligan was also unlawfully appointed, which basically killed the government's cases against former FBI Director James Comey and Letitia James. No doubt this all brings us to the Supreme Court. So what comes next?
Not that there was a case against Comey and Letitia James, but what the hell? I'm gonna the governor gets this one.
He's a
He's
lawyer.
an attorney.
Yeah.
He's got that. Go ahead, counselor.
Well, well, I hope a couple things come. First of all, that is exactly right, Maritza. It's either you have to be appointed by the district judges or they actually have to be confirmed by the city. There's this thing called the Federal Vacancy Reform Act. I sued William Perry Penley, right? Because
Oh,
he had
yeah.
never been confirmed by the Senate and said, if you're going to serve in a job, you actually have to get confirmed by the US Senate. That's that whole checks and balances thing that we have. And time again, what we're seeing, like this administration has withdrawn more individuals that were nominated than any administration since Reagan. And also, we grab a hold of this most recent, this Haba and Lindsay before that. But the same things happened in Nevada as well. The same things happened in the Northern District of New York. So these are US attorneys that weren't confirmed by the Senate. And often, like what you have when you talk about the rule of law, you also have this moment where there's not a heck of a lot of lawyers that would bring some of these cases against Comey and others. So, but Alina Habba was Trump's personal attorney before she
Right.
got in.
And so is Lindsay Halligan.
So the question is, what happens next? Well, you sure as hell hope that the court system holds, because I tried to give the ray of sunshine of here are a couple times that Republican members are standing up, but by and large they haven't. And there's been a few court cases that we can certainly question as well. But it ought to be pretty black and white and clear here of what actually the law says to be appointed. And if that's not there, you hope the appellate courts, I think the Third Circuit has already upheld saying that she's gone. You hope when this goes to the US Supreme Court, they actually, I don't know, follow the law.
You are a ray of sunshine.
No, you are my sunshine.
I thought you were gonna throw an F-bomb in there. You're
Well,
really controlling yourself tonight. Okay.
Absolutely. There's people here.
Okay, so this is something I read up on more than I planned to over the weekend because sometimes I help Senator Tester with research.
Occasionally.
Other duties as assigned?
Yes.
Wow.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Hey, look, I don't type well. Okay.
So there is a special election in Tennessee's 7th congressional district tomorrow, Tuesday. Trump has endorsed the Republican candidate, but that didn't do very much for the candidates he endorsed in last month's election. So what do you think? What's going to happen tomorrow?
So for folks that don't know, that seat's about 20 points Republican. And the most recent polls out on that Tennessee seat show a slight lead by the Republican over the Democrat. But my belief is this is an incredibly instructive race because this is a very rural district in Tennessee. And if this lady wins, I think it sends a hell of a message to the White House that his policies in rural America are not working. And guess what? His policies in rural America are not working. And if they send a lady Democrat from this district that has been Republican for a long, long, long time, I just think it's going to send a hell of a message. I don't know if she's going to win or not. I think it's going to be very close because depending on who votes, but I think she's got a fair shot at it, quite frankly. And like I said, if that were to happen, being a district that is vast majority rural, I think it sends a message to the White House on what they're doing with tariffs, what they're doing to rural medicine, and what they're doing with a lot of other stuff, not upholding, personal rights and those kind of things. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Tuesday. Tuesday night's going to be interesting. Normally, people from Montana don't tune into to a Tennessee congressional on number 7, but I got a notion people all over this country are going to be tuning in and watching that race.
Yeah, it's a Trump 20 plus 22 district.
Yeah.
So look, even if she doesn't win, if it's that close, it ought to be a message for a whole lot of folks. The White House ought to listen to it. But, I'm not sure it's the National Democratic Party that's
Yeah.
made it
No,
close yet. The challenges that we have right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I would tell you that I think if it's close and the Republican wins, I think the White House blows it off. I think if the Democrat wins, I think the White House goes, shit,
You
we
bet.
maybe have to look at our policies here because we're not winning. And by the way, I would bet you Maurice is going to talk about a poll next.
Oh, you
Pretty
must
good,
be
huh?
psychic.
But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
two have worked together
Yeah,
long
it's
enough that
unbelievable.
it's like a
No,
mind melt.
It
Yeah.
just means that he read my notes, which is
Yeah.
a first.
And I
maybe.
wouldn't want to spend
I
I
don't
wouldn't
type
want to
well.
spend 8 hours in either their brains. So now that they're melded together, that's that much
don't.
scarier.
Yeah, that's actually accurate. You don't want to clear our brains. I was going to mention that this comes after Marjorie Taylor Greene announced that she's resigning.
Yep.
We had another Republican member announce that he's resigning
Nels.
over the weekend. Nels from Texas. I do think though his identical twin brother said, "Oh, I'll run for his seat and support the MAGA movement." I mean, if you're an identical twin, why not just go in? I just have a
Just don't even resign, just
Yeah,
swap, right?
swap.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm just kidding. But I do want to put up this poll because obviously, I mean, the November election was a huge win for Democrats across the country. And this poll that just came out from Gallup shows that President Trump's approval rating dropped another 5 points, 36%. That's the lowest of his term. This graph, though, is just really remarkable. If you look at the top line, and there's a red line at the top, that is congressional job approval by party. So the drop in congressional approval by Republicans went from 61% in July to 23% today. 61 to 23%. Chris Liza first put this up on Substack today, and so thanks, Chris, for pointing this out. But it's a stunning number.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows a couple things. I think it shows that the policies aren't working. And I think even a bigger thing that it shows is Congress forgot to read the Constitution, and they're not living up to their constitutional duties as Article 1 folks with the Constitution. And I think you continue to see this. But what's interesting is that The Republicans fear that if they challenge the president, they're going to get a MAGA primary. But if the Democrat wins this Tennessee race, what it says is that the MAGA primary isn't your problem. Your problem is the general election. And I think it will give those folks in Congress some backbone. And I think they need backbone to be able to make the lines go back up. As long as they are a do nothing Congress that rubber stamps everything the administration does, you're going to see those numbers continue to fall.
And I guess like on the one hand, the numbers you put up are shocking, but on the other, are they? Like the only thing that they've really passed so far is what? The tax cuts that
For the billionaires.
the billionaires get everything. I think like 50 of the largest companies pay zero in taxes. It does nothing for you and I. And we're about to see our insurance rate for so many on exchange go up 150%. You look at what they've actually done, like things like going back to media. I mean, I don't know, the public broadcasting used to be a bipartisan issue. And the impoundment where we saw it in Montana, what percentage of our federal employees are veterans?
Oh,
Yeah, they got
It's
canned.
big, and they
Yeah,
get canned
yeah.
for no reason. So there's not a damn thing that the Congress has done so far that actually helps out folks in this country. So
Amen.
on the one hand, it ought to be those numbers. And you sure as hell hope that, again, for the good of the country, this is bigger than politics, is
Right.
that you sure as hell hope that at some point people get a message that say, like I believe the senator did, it's like, I work for folks at home, even folks that don't always agree with me. And that's what we knew when John Tester was there. And we're just in this moment, right, where they should be less popular because they're sure as hell not worrying about your ag prices, not worrying about your insurance prices. They're not doing a damn thing about inflation. They're not doing things about the people talk about at their families or their kids each and every night. Their lives ain't better.
Governor, go back to talking about John Tester.
Oh, I could talk
Well,
about John Tester
listen.
all night.
We have so many fun, familiar faces in the audience, but former Lieutenant Governor, he is also here. And he just dropped off all these stickers of you too. And a few months ago,
You were on those stickers.
but he
Yep.
sent stickers a few months ago that they said thank you, John Tester.
Really?
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Somebody else must have done that. Cooney couldn't do that.
Cooney did it, and he gave you the hat,
Yeah.
the very first hat that started this whole hat thing that we do.
Yeah, the one that
The
said
vote.
that I barely.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
one that
yeah, okay.
you eked by, but
Yeah, I know. That's good.
no, it's,
Well,
it's
we love the Coney. That's for damn.
right.
That's good.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do have a question on Substack.
Yep.
Bob wants to know, why are these people resigning? Why are these
'Cause-
Republican members resigning?
I can tell you why Congress isn't any fun. They weren't elected to be a rubber stamp. They know it. They know what they're doing is wrong, and they're just saying, "Hey, I can't do this anymore. This is what I signed up for." And that, whether they admit it or not, that's why they're resigning. I can tell you that folks have been back to Congress that sees what's gone on this Congress in both the Senate and the House will tell you that it's miserable to be a Democrat, but it's also miserable to be a Republican. And that's why they're quitting.
But why would Marjorie Taylor Greene resign before her term is up?
Maybe she's going to run for governor.
Mhm. Somebody else heard president. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot going on there. I have a
Yeah.
feeling we might be reading a book
You
soon.
know, I left with that. Respond to that. That's good.
We did, yeah.
Her on
But
the
you had-
We tried,
podcast.
but she has this one.
she hasn't
No.
responded.
She knows that Maritza is really a tough interview with those people.
I'm no Mike Dennison, but maybe we could get him to come sub us. Okay, well, that's all I have for headlines. Anything else you two want to talk about before we kick the former governor off stage?
We'll give them
Oh, I didn't know I was leaving, but
Yeah.
okay. Go ahead. No, yeah. No, it's good. It's
No,
good.
good.
I was kidding.
As
Here's the
long
deal,
as we
Governor.
can
Don't
help get our people.
don't lie like this was hard. But we'll get Jeff Manga to talk about important stuff, and then we'll bring you back when we do questions from the audience.
That
Oh,
sounds
Does
perfect.
that sound
Okay.
good?
All right.
All right.
Great.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Governor.
All right.
Thank you.
There you go. governor of the great state of Montana. Unfortunately, not anymore, but good. Next up, we've got a guy that I served in the state senate with, who was my seatmate. Incredibly,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah. No, he's got secrets on me like nobody else. And
Well, that's good.
he did a great job as a state senator. He did a great job as commissioner of political practice for the state of Montana. And he's doing a great job on this initiative. And so, Jeff Mangan, we're more than happy to have you here. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy day to be here. Now, do you want to ask the first question? Or do I do get to ask it?
Well,
Well,
do you have one in mind? Oh,
I was just gonna
Jeff wants to
say
say
I was
hi.
just gonna say thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate the invite.
ab- absolutely. Well, we figure we got to do something to help balance government a little bit. Okay.
Let me start here, if you don't mind, unless you want to start with
no,
Citizens
go
United.
ahead. It's okay. Ladies first.
So when I think about Citizens United, the Supreme Court case that came down in 2010, basically saying that corporations have the same rights as people and allowed billions and billions and billions of dollars to flow into our elections pretty much overnight. I also think about the day I learned about the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision and how immediately everyone kind of said, well, wait, what now? What path what path is there now? I mean, this is the law of the land. This is the Supreme Court. It's such a consequential decision. How is there a path forward? But what we're seeing is states stepping up. And so I've seen a lot of national news about what you are doing right here in Montana as a blueprint for what can be done across the rest of the country as far as overturning the effects of Citizens United. So let's talk about that. I'm wondering if you can explain it in a way that my 14-year-old would easily understand.
I'll try. And thank you. And I always loved Mike. So, but he'd always ask me questions. I was just never able to give him an answer. So, at any rate, um, no, great. No, this has been quite the ride the last year. Uh, if for those of folks that don't know, I was Montana's Commissioner of Political Practices, 2017, appointed by Governor Bullock, confirmed 49-1 by a Republican-led Senate Montana. So went through that process legitimately, um, and this
I'm
is
glad you got that in. That's
kind of
good.
following through. Um, but as when I left, you can only serve one term for 6 years. And when I left in 2023, one of the things that always bothered me that we weren't able to address the effects of Citizens United. All of this money pouring into campaigns. And while Montana has strong campaign finance transparency disclosure laws because of the Disclose Act in 2015, um, uh, we weren't able to, because of Citizens United and the loss of the Corrupt Practices Act from 1912, we weren't able to stop the flow of corporate and dark money into our elections. And literally since 2010 and the passage of Citizens United, people have given up. There's nothing we can do. It's the First Amendment. Corporations are people. And, hell, there hadn't even been polling done on Citizens United for 15 years. Um, but a friend of mine who worked for the FEC started doing some research. We all of us policy wonks and campaign finance always looking for ways how can we address Citizens United. He discovered a mechanism, a way that folks hadn't thought about in over 150 years. And it was simply right now, all corporations, Montana and across the United States, um, are granted all general powers by the charter the states issue them. And the states issue each charter in their states, not the federal government. So each state is responsible for their corporate law and issuing of those charters. But for 150 years, for a variety of different reasons, states have just entered or just issued general corporate charters that basically provide corporations, courts have deemed, the same rights as humans, the same rights as you and I, given to a corporation. That's where the corporate personhood uh, information comes up. But what the Supreme Court never did, and folks have never done, is taken away the rights of the state to foundationally change that charter in the first place. What we've been doing for the last 150 years, and what we did was a Disclose Act, did with the Corrupt Practices Act of 1912 and others is we regulated a power the state had already given a corporation. That's what we've been doing. And some of them were held up by the courts, some of them weren't. Citizens United, some of in the state of Montana. But we're going back to the foundation. We're going back to, the states have the right to assign what powers a corporation has in the first place. And we're simply saying states, you don't have corporations, do not have the power to spend in politics. Simple as that. You don't have the power, the right doesn't attach to that power. So we're not overturning Citizens United. We're making Citizens United irrelevant. We're
It's a
making
workaround.
citizens, yeah, it's not even a workaround. It's just going to be moot in the state of Montana. It'll be moot in the next state that passes it, and moot in the next state that passes it, until all states, with the exception of probably Delaware, it'll be moot everywhere but Delaware. And Delaware can have that.
Okay, so explain this to me in a real way. So states or corporations that are based in Montana cannot spend their money in Montana. And then if every other state does that, then it basically eliminates that throughout the country.
Well, it's even better than that. We're Montana. We're the first one. Not only does it affect, first of all, it affects local, state, federal races. We're talking about corporate law, not can't be finance disclosure law. We're not going to be regulating something, the power they already have. We're going to take away that power in the first place. That's corporate law. So corporations, Montana corporations, old and new, will not be able to spend in Montana elections. Every corporation outside of the state of Montana that wants to do business in the state of Montana already have to file, and this is and every other state files as a foreign corporation. So if they want to do business in the state of Montana, they have to file as a foreign corporation. And basically, what they're doing when they file as a corporation is saying they're going to follow the structure of Montana. So we just eliminated all of that money coming into Montana. Those outside states can still spend in all those other elections until they pass this in other states, but they won't be able to spend in Montana. So we killed two birds with one stone.
Because what they're doing when you're a corporation and you file to be a corporation in Montana, they say you can be a corporation in Montana, but you can't contribute to campaigns. That's the charter of being a corporation. So it's going to be really interesting to see if we can get this passed. I know Maritza's got the numbers. Maybe you've got them too. I've got my own personal number. But tell me how since 2010, or getting the right millennium here. Since 2010, tell me how the money has flowed into these campaigns.
I do have a graph up too, billionaire spending in presidential elections, and you can see from Citizens
Yeah.
United just how much it's exploded.
2010 is when the Supreme Court decision of Citizens United came out.
Yeah, and then this billionaire chart, but all the charts regarding Citizen United spending in elections look like this. The main one, independent expenditures, of which corporations now can spend unlimited in elections through independent expenditures. In 2010, in 28 or 20, in 2008, prior to Citizens United, federal presidential election year, basically $1.4 million spent, 140 million dollars nationwide spent in elections. In 2024, $4.21 billion. It increased almost 2,800%. I mean, it literally is. There's this flat line, and we'll just say Montana flat line from 1889, 2010, straight up 2024, and it's just going to continue. In Montana, we say the same thing. Montana, Max Baucus, 2008, independent expenditure in his Senate race. You'll love this senator. $38,000 in independent expenditure. Independent expenditures in that race. $38,000. It's almost embarrassing when I take this on the road and talk about it because of all of the numbers. It's not embarrassing. I love it because it's in your race. Was it $180 million in independent expenditures in 2024 Leahy versus Tester, between corporate money and dark money independent expenditures. And Senator Tester will be the first one to tell you that he got more dark money in his race than his opponent, than Senator Sheehy. So this isn't about partisanship. bipartisanship. Both parties, both folks, red, blue, are putting all this money into campaigns. All I'm worried about is the green in the middle.
Yeah, and the fact is that when I went around the state of Montana, when I was a U.S. Senator, Democrats and Republicans equally talked to me about this. There was just as many Republicans who were upset about it as there were Democrats, and vice versa, because they were sick and tired of turning on the TV for 6, 8, 10 year and a half before the election, and all you see is campaign ads that drive you insane. And when you tell people if you think it drives you insane, you ought to be. I mean, it's unbelievable. So now,
Well, hold on. I
this
want to ask you a question.
sure, go ahead.
Don't
You
be
can't
annoying.
do that.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
So Republicans and Democrats
Yeah.
frustrated by this
Yeah.
across the country.
Yep.
And yet, 121 members of Congress have introduced or co-sponsored legislation to return Citizens United. I took a look before. Sorry, Senator, before you got the boot. You either introduced or co-sponsored a joint resolution with this specific language in it, going back to 2012, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of
Yep.
the United States
The high bar.
to
Yep.
clarify the authority of Congress and the states to regulate corporations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if this has bipartisan support and bipartisan outrage, why is it going to take this step going forward here, and why isn't it happening?
Well,
in
because
Congress?
most of the good legislations that pass at the federal level is led by the states to begin with. I'll just tell you. That's why state legislatures are so important, because those legislatures really set the standard, and the federal government takes those bills up later. That's number one. Um, and I can tell you that the reason it hasn't passed in Washington D.C. is people haven't put pressure on their elected representatives, and I can tell you there are Democrats and Republicans alike that think this is a really bad idea, because there's a lot of people making a living off of these campaigns now. And so they're saying, no, we don't want to do it. And by the way, we think we get the advantage, when in fact, democracy loses because of this. The American people lose because of this. Want to talk about why elected officials won't go talk to the press? Because they don't have to. 'Cause they can buy their ads. They can tell the people what they stand for, because there's so damn much money out there. Here's the thing that's ironic, and this is a question for you, Jeff. Who's challenging this right now?
Who's challenging me and the
Who's,
Montana plan?
who's challenging this plan?
Uh, well, two groups went in. The with amicus to the Montana Supreme Court. That's where we're at now, waiting on our ballot language. Those two groups were the Montana Mining Association and the Montana Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, and I don't have to tell you about the mining law that was passed 150 years ago. We wouldn't want to update that now. So there's a good reason there. But the Chamber of Commerce, really? I'm going to tell you, when the campaigns would go on in both 12 and 18, we would get calls into my Senate office saying, "Would you please take those ads down? We've got a furniture sale we're trying to pass, and we can't buy time to advertise a furniture sale." This would help small businesses. Absolutely, unequivocally would help small business. Why the chamber's dipping their toe into this one doesn't make any sense to me at all, unless, of course, the mining industry is funding a good portion of it.
Yeah, and I truly believe, I truly believe, just anecdotal, I truly believe local chambers of commerce feel like
Yeah.
you do. You just said it's the state chamber of commerce. Lots of multinational corporations, national corporations in that mix. Uh, but let me just say, I'll just pick up on that. It's part about the Montana plan, and that's what we called it, by the way. First in the nation to do this. And it basically because Montana rolled up its sleeves in the early 1900s, passed the Crop Practices Act in 1912. One of the reasons that Senator Tester, I imagine, besides the fact that he really wanted to do it, because in 2012, after Citizens United passed, Montana passed I-166 that basically said is the policy of the state of Montana that corporations are not people and don't have the same rights as people. And we passed that 75% in 2012. Just a policy statement against what that policy statement said, and it's still on the books. It's the policy was that elected officials, such as Senator Tester and others, it was their duty to find a solution to ending Citizens United. Basically, what it says. It's just a policy. It's still on the books. But Montanans were pissed in 2012 and put it on. It's just kind of a fuel statement, but that's where Montana was. So people say, "Why Montana? Why are you starting this one?" It's easy for me. Just go back to 1912. Go back to 2012. Look at our constitution from 1972. The reason I'm able to do this is because of everyone in this room. We all have the ability. We have these, our constitution gave us to take this to the people, either through constitutional initiative, which is what we're attempting to do, or through ballot initiative, which we may have to do, or through legislation. We have three different ways we can do. Um, but I'm sticking with people of the state of Montana because I know what the people of the state of Montana. That's because if I asked you, do you believe there's too much money in politics? You're going to say not a one. I don't. Does anybody think there's not enough money in politics?
We do have a comment about that too. I mean, how much money that would like to fix the problems that all of the politicians are talking about.
Bingo.
So I want to back up a little bit just to give our audience a little bit of a primer because you mentioned that you're before the Supreme Court, right? That is because the Attorney General basically tried to void this effort by saying it was legally insufficient. Your group filed a lawsuit with the Supreme Court right now. What's next? What if the court sides with BEG?
If it depending on what the court says and what we're still fully confident. We believe the Supreme Court is going to find our initiative legally sufficient and be able to move forward. If they don't, we will take a look to see what the Supreme Court did, and we're already writing another constitutional initiative and or a ballot initiative that we can forward. So this isn't going away if they say there's more than one subject to vote on. So, good work.
Are
Thanks
you?
for doing this.
I'm not done. I'm not quite done, but yes, good work. I want to know because I read about this in Robert Reich's Substack, the former labor secretary of the United States. Okay. He wrote about this and literally said Montana might have the answer here. So, uh, what are you hearing from other states? Are they following suit? Are you getting phone calls? Are we going to see this kind of spread across the country?
Yeah, there already is. It's just been this swell, particularly in the last month for a variety of different reasons, like Robert Reich. Um, we haven't reached out to any of these people. We're just Montana citizens volunteering grassroots, bottom up driven. Talk about that really quick before I leave. Um, and we're just doing the work. And when you do the work, it's kind of like they did in 1912 and in 2012, people notice. Um, Pete Buttigieg said something on a stage in Texas a couple of weeks ago. Robert Reich, a couple of others. Issue One, a national C3 organization that is doing work in the campaign finance space, issued a poll and put a poll out that basically said that 75% of Montanans support what we're doing. And not only that, 79% of Americans say that uh, corporate money, corporate dark money in elections uh, can be corrupting or give the appearance of corruption, which is the antithesis of Citizens United. And Citizens United, while everyone thinks what the court said was that corporations are, well, they really didn't say that. What they said is even worse. What they said is independent expenditures by corporations cannot be corrupting. They literally that's what's written in that. That's it cannot be corrupting. As a matter of fact, it can't even give the appearance of corruption. That's what Citizens United says. All we have to do anymore is just read our tablets, read our phones, watch our TVs, listen to top of the hour um, on Grounded podcast,
Thanks.
you'll understand whether or not there's corruption by both sides. So one last thing, just so everybody knows, this isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. It's nonpartisan, grassroots. Look, no one came, no organization, no C4 came and wrote us a check to get this done. No one wants to touch it because, like John said, they put them out of business. Steve Corpse, C corps, limited liability, nonprofits, C4s, unions, associations are all covered by the Montana plan. There's not a loophole. It doesn't make a carve out for a special interest. It treats everybody the same. And that's the reason that 75% of the people support what we're doing. Thank you.
So the last thing, Jeff, before we get to questions, and that this comes from a Christian put down a question, and that is that so you give out your email so people can figure out how to do this in their state too.
Or
Or-
if someone's listening and want to know what to do, how to help, how to get started, what should they do?
So just visit themontanaplan.com or transparentelection.org. Email TEI@transparentelection.org. But to answer your question, because I really didn't, I had three, a state assembly, a state senator, an assemblyman, and a delegate email me today about getting legislation in their state.
Wow.
And we're already up to, I want to say 15 or 16 states that folks on the ground actually starting to mobilize like we've done in Montana. So once again, Montana is leading the way on this. That's how we're looked at. We've done it before. We're going to do it again, and we're going to lead this all the way when it does pass to the Supreme Court. And maybe in a couple of years, it'll be the law of the land.
Be great. Be absolutely great. So thanks, Jeff.
Right. Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Jeff. We appreciate it.
Wow. Yeah. So you want a microphone? So just to let the folks on the podcast know, there's a lady sitting at the table to my left that says this piggy is ready to vote.
You stop it. Oh, she is. Oh, she does have a
Yeah.
shirt. I
You
love
know
that.
that?
I'm gonna guess I do want one of those. That's my new line for John Tester. I said, "Quiet, piggy."
Wow. Wow.
I give no respect.
I know.
Okay, do we have any questions? Do we have another microphone if somebody wants to anybody? Maybe not. Maybe
Questions? No.
oh, yes.
Anyone
yes.
but Mike
Yeah.
Dennison?
Come on, man.
Mike
Really?
Dennison.
We want real
Come
people.
on.
Mike Dennison
He's
is
just a
elected.
journalist.
He's retired. We have some help. We do have a question or just a comment. Just over 600,000 votes in Montana, $108 million spent on the Senate race. It was more than that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was over $250 million. It was
Oh.
280.
That was a lot. Oh,
And I'm not sure we have a
Okay.
final count.
All right, Mike Dennison.
I have a question for Jeff Mangan
oh.
about the
All
initiative.
right, Mangan, you're up,
Come on,
buddy.
Megan.
No fair for you.
There it is. Okay.
It's right there. It's in the
All right.
back.
Now, Jeff, of course, we talked your initiative of Justice Citizens United, and not long after that, there was a decision, Speak Now or Speaks Now, that basically, in the aftermath of Citizens United, ripped away all the limits on individuals, like billionaires like Elon Musk, giving to PACs. Not corporations, but individuals. I'm just wondering if your initiative passes, would that have any effect on that element of this unlimited money in Montana or in Montana?
Well, no comment. No. No. Well, I can't fix everything. No, it wouldn't. It would. But what it would allow is for disclosure for rather than millionaires and billionaires and those folks trying to hide their money through C4s and remain anonymous, and only the C4 is disclosed. They would actually have to put their name where their money is. So, and we kind of, I mean, you can kind of look at the Michigan or the Wisconsin Supreme Court race just earlier this year. You know, Elon Musk, to his credit, said, "I'm the one who's spending all this money." And when people know how money's being spent, they they accordingly. I do think we need to have limits, but that's not what this does. This basically takes corporations out of the mix. So now corporations and individuals can spend in elections in Montana. After the Montana plan, just individuals. But if they do, it's going to be disclosed and transparent, like what Montana's disclosed access.
Mike, I'd add one thing on that. Look, This last cycle, 2 billion was spent in dark money, 1.9 billion, right? And if you go back to Citizens United, part of the premise of it all was like, look, with the advent of the internet and everything else, and this is directly out of the case, people will know who's trying to buy politicians. Like dark money did not exist before that. So even if you can't control individual contributions, at least once you get rid of 501c4s, which are a corporation, which is where all the dark money spends, and really was an issue before Citizens United, then either that money will dry up or you'll know that whoever it is, be it a company or an individual, is trying to buy this race.
Great question. Others?
This one is for Senator Tester. Thank you for the constitutional amendment you offered, reversing Citizens United. And I don't know what the votes or the sponsors look like on that one. Looking on the House side, the most support I've seen for an amendment to get rid of unlimited billionaire spending or individual spending is 68 co-sponsors out of 435, and that's abysmal. That's 15% of the United States House. So on a human level, it's hard to comprehend how more folks wouldn't jump in support of that. But I would love your thoughts on how you take care of that issue.
Yeah, it's because the leadership tells them not to do that. Um, and you know, Mitch McConnell has never been for any sort of campaign finance reform whatsoever. He has fought it every step. Very successful. Mitch is no longer leader of the Senate. It's still now. I can tell you off the record, now to the Journal, I had many conversations with Thune on Joe Manchin's boat. He talked about how big money was ruining these elections. So I doubt deep he understands it. Whether he'll do it or not, I don't know. You know, the big money people really do dictate a lot. It's going to take the little guy, just like it did 100 years ago in Montana. It's going to take the little guy standing up and say enough of this crap. We want our elections back. We want to have our elected representatives have town hall meetings. We're going to have our elected representatives to be able to talk to the press. We want to see our elected representatives in our towns so we can talk to them eyeball to eyeball. It's never going to happen until we get campaign finance reform. I think it is the single biggest problem that we have with democracy, short of Donald Trump.
We have a question online. Does the DNC just what money goes to which candidate? How much influence does the DNC have over each candidate? And we can start.
Yeah, and you can include all of them, but they control it. There are some limits on what they can give to candidates, but they control where they spend their money, just like the C4s control where they spend their money, and the C3s control where they spend their money. The bottom line is there's just too much money in all this, and if if Montana can lead the way on this, and like I said, we've done it before, I think it's the toothpaste is out of the tube, and it's going to be really tough for these guys to stop other states from doing this because this is common sense stuff. It's just common sense.
We got a question back here.
Thank you. This question is for Senator Tester. I think it goes without saying for many of us that following politics on a national level is fairly demoralizing. So, given what has been said in the past, if you wanted to make your voice known, that you should call your representative. But yet, I think many of us, perhaps having tried that, have found that Dane, Sheehy, and Downing really don't give a damn of what anyone thinks that's outside of the line that they're willing to tread. So, what is it that we can do beyond vote, beyond make a post, beyond talk to our friends that can make a difference, that can get through to these people? Because it kind of feels like they're way above and apart, and we're just down here. So, what would you suggest that we do?
Well, first of all, don't think for a second that you're down here. If you feel that way, then you've got to not feel that way because the fact of the matter is we're all on the level. They are in these positions for a limited amount of time, and they're elected to represent the people who. Okay. What I would tell you is the same thing I tell everybody. I would continue to write letters, make send email, and if you still don't get any response, go to the airport. They fly the same flights every week, and the way, no big deal. They did this to me, so what the hell? Do it to them. You know, catch them when they're getting on Monday morning. Ask them questions, and bring Mike Dennison with you so he can cover it. And same thing when they get off the airplanes on Thursday evening at 10:30 at Bozeman Airport. Ask them questions. And by the way, it is just that simple. I flew for 18 years and it was the same flight every Monday morning. And it was the same flight with few exceptions Thursday night. Once in a while, they'd keep it a little longer and you'd have to fly back on Friday morning. So unless you're using private jets, which is expensive, and they have to pay with their own pocket. Um, catch them, ask them questions. They gotta get the DC and they gotta get back.
I'd only add that, look, it's a demoralizing time in as much as like actually speaking to your elected officials. Like there aren't town halls or there aren't times where you see them. But don't not get off. Don't still make those phone calls. Like, look, I'm sure, Senator, you got, as I did, that all here are the number of letters that you got
Yeah,
on this issue. Here are the
absolutely.
number of calls you got. So it feels like you're sort of the myth of Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill, but continue to make those because it
Say that
matters.
again.
That's Sisyphus, not
Sisyphus. I
syphilis,
thought you said
John.
Mrs. Sisyphus. So I just want to tell you that we have gotten comment after comment after comment. And it's governable. They should run
The
against
Brown
Steve Daines.
Prester should run against Steve Daines. How about it, ladies and gentlemen?
No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
Did I interrupt?
no, Public, you got it all wrong.
No.
I'm running for president.
Why that?
Yeah, we did try that. Yeah, actually, we get comments all the time that you should run and you should run. So,
Yeah, we could have a primary.
wait, I think Chester. Did you just make headlines? And now, so somewhere tomorrow,
Right.
someone's going to say John Chester announced he's running for president.
No. Well, I don't know about that, but that was done for Bullock's benefit anyway.
I don't know. People are saying yes. People, yes, run for Senate again. How's
Yeah.
the beer? They want to know.
The beer is great, and just so you know, I live in a place where the air is a hell of a lot better than it is in Washington D.C. So we'll keep breathing the good air.
Okay. Do we have any more questions from our live in-person audience?
All right, we got one. Oh, I'm gonna get him and then you.
I thought Mike Cooney might step up with a question.
No,
Oh.
You can always count on Mike Cooney for a
Yeah.
good question, right?
right, exactly.
So obviously the elections next year are going to look in Montana are going to look very different than they did this past year.
I hope so.
Probably, a couple $100 billion less. What do you see as the way forward, specifically for Democrats? But you just talked about the very, very low approval rating of Congress and Republicans, and we saw the effects of Trump's policies just earlier, or I guess just last month, on election night. So, what do you see as the way that Democrats can continue to go forward in this weird time of transition that will provide long-term effects instead of just winning because everyone is mad at Trump right now?
And I think that's a real poor strategy. If you're gonna run a campaign that says those guys are horrible and we're a little bit better, those campaigns don't work, and we've got 20 years of proof of that. Look, there are a lot of issues out there, but if I was running a statewide race in Montana, I would pick 3, and these are the 3 I would pick. Tariffs are killing rural America. Family farms, the people who voted for Donald Trump are gonna go out of business this winter. They're gonna go out of business. Why? Because our markets are trash and the input costs have gone through the roof. I'm talking about fertilizer, herbicides, and the cost of equipment. So those are 2 things. And then the third thing is inflation, inflation, inflation. Come up with some plans on how you can make everything from food to housing to college education more affordable and push them out there. It's there for the taking. And I think if you're able to come out with a uh, good set of campaign planks that you can talk about every time Mike Dennison asks you a question about what's going on in Ukraine, you talk about tariffs and you talk about inputs in agriculture and you talk about, by the way, you could also talk about what they do for healthcare. Crashing. By the way, the whole state of Montana is rural, so it goes across the state. So it's a target-rich environment. There's plenty of things you can do to make it so people will say, you know what? That guy just talked about all the things that I'm worried about. I'm going to vote for that gal. And we can do that. But as you pointed out, and this is a fact, if you walk up and say, "This person is doing a horrible job, we're gonna do better than them," that is not a plan for victory.
Yeah, I made the mistake in 2017. I think I said at one point, I wish people cared as much about politics as they do about professional sports, right? On any given Sunday, you have a million people plus or hundreds of thousands of stadium, billions watch. Now I think in some respects, people care about politics like they care about professional sports. You're a Raiders fan, not only do I hate you, I hate your grandma.
What the
And
hell?
and but that's where we are right now. But what we need to do, and and I agree with the senator, is bring it to what people talk about at their kitchen table, right? Like, at the end of the day, most people's lives are too busy to give a damn about politics. They're worried about, is my kid gonna get sick? What are my property tax payments? What's our public schools like? Make it about what is at home. And tariffs, the center says, healthcare, what it says, and who are you fighting for? And I'm willing to fight for you. Like, that's what we need to break through sort of that national din of red team, blue team. And there's a lot of reasons to be dispirited. There's also right now a lot of reasons for optimism, right? That folks at the end of the day want to vote for somebody that's going to have their back. And there's a lot of reasons to say that the folks in there right now don't have your back.
And we've got a question in the back.
You talked about journalism being a huge part of being essential to keeping democracy alive. And I'm curious, what can the average citizen do to ensure that journalism, especially local journalism, is thriving?
Oh, come on. Wait, you guys need it. You play a role in this too. I have to shout out, that's Emily, who I used to work with, who I started with in my first job in local journalism. And you know, I think the biggest thing is subscribe to your local newspaper. Subscribe to the journalists, follow the journalists that you support, that you want to hear from. That's part of the problem that we're seeing, these news deserts. And what happens when you have a news desert is people are getting the information. And you take rural Montana, for instance, and they don't have access to quality local news in many places. And that's across the country. And what happens is their entities fill the void. And a lot of times it is super far right radio news in a lot of cases. And you're seeing that across the country. I just think that also, when you were talking about people calling like the furniture store saying, "I want to get my ad on TV," I also heard from people during the election cycles, "Sorry, I'm not watching the news right now. I can't stand the ads. I can't stand the ads. I don't wanna watch the news," or "The news is too depressing," or "I have fatigue," or it doesn't affect me." So I think, really just having conversations with people around you when they say, I can't pay attention to all that," explaining why it matters and why it's affecting them, why they should be paying attention is a really, good practice. What am I missing?
The only thing I would add to this is that, if you're an elected official, there's something called earned media that doesn't cost you any money, and earned media means you talk to Marisa Georgia when she worked for a TV station, you talk to Mike Dennison when he worked for a newspaper, and those articles would come out, and you would get attention. And this goes back to Mangan's effort, the Montana plan. Until we get this figured out, we don't have to have earned media because they can put their own message out saying whatever they want, whether it's factual or not, about what they're doing, and we see it. And so I think they both go hand in hand, and I think one helps prop up journalism, and then maybe we'll get to a point where the journalists get back to the point where they're going to ask a question that really is a question that that elected official doesn't want to answer. And right now, as I look at the national programs, because there's not really much local press left besides the online stuff, um, even the national reporters don't ask tough questions anymore because they're afraid of getting called out by name or whatever it might be. And I think that's really it's really dangerous, and it's not as much fun either because I like to see people figure out how the hell they get out of a situation where they voted against their own constituency. And it's happening all the time, but nobody's covering.
I'll add one more thing to that. Um, I, you know, the other day, Jim Acosta pointed this out, and I think it's a really great point. After, I joke about saying quiet piggy, but that really happened on Air Force One 2 weeks ago, where the president said that to a female journalist, and nobody said anything. Nobody stepped up and said, "You can't do that." And I remember, I'm pretty sure it was when Jim Acosta was attacked during the first Trump term, and Peter Alexander from NBC News stood up. He had the next question. He said, "I'm sorry, but Jim Acosta is a treasured colleague, smart reporter, and he's not whatever insult the president just threw at him." And I think that we've lost some of that. Here in Montana, during the COVID pandemic, I had never felt closer to the Montana Press Corps because we were constantly on your press calls, Governor. Thank you for bringing us together.
Beating the hell out of me. Yes.
Beating up on Coach Bullock, but we had constant communication, and then when the administration changed, and we weren't getting the same access, the same press press briefings, or we weren't getting the questions answered expediently, or there was favoritism going on, we would all get on Zoom calls and say, "What are we going to do about this collectively as a press corps?" And I really think we need to get back to that. And we saw that a little bit during when the Pentagon basically said, "Sign this new agreement, or you're going to lose your Pentagon press badge." We saw Fox News say, "We're not signing that." Saw some of that banding together. But I think as news consumers, when you see capitulation or silence or reporting that's just not the kind of reporting you want to see, you should reach out to your local news outlet. You should reach out to your national news outlet and say, "We want to see more of this. We want to see pushback. We want to see you stand up for each other." Because without those journalists not only working together, but also having competitive, friendly competition, we're not going to get these stories. I mean, this Washington Post story about Hegseth order is a huge story. And how much longer are we going to have that?
I think this is a question for Jeff. I'm curious if there's ever any conversation about self-funding of campaigns. Candidates should ever be held to the same contribution limits as the rest of us, or maybe that's just a lost cause, or
I understand exactly what you're saying. There's always been discussions. Like I said, we've been working for years. What options are there? Lots of good folks have ran self-funding up the flagpole. Others, I get because of folks spending in their own campaigns in Montana um, without having that finance, not like other candidates do from others. Like that, but this initiative doesn't cover that, or we would be part of the extra more than one vote um, provision. But it's certainly something I wouldn't say things a lost cause. Reason that we're able to do this today is because we're actually working and we're going to make it not a lost cause. And so, if that's something that you're interested in, if we're not successful or if we are successful, it's something you believe in or your friends believe in, is to encourage it, support it, go out and do it, because that's what really makes a change. I can't tackle that one, but you can, and I'd encourage it.
Got a question here.
Yeah, hi, I'm a vet. It's not so much a question as an observation. Montana has nearly 80,000 veterans, one of the highest population per capita in the country, with nearly 30,000 qualifying for disabilities at some level. um, the big bad bill cut a bunch of funding for veterans, and funding in existence and the continuation of facilities like Fort Harrison are up in the air. And it seems like he wants the pushes to privatize. And again, not a question so much as we need to be aware of what's afoot. And I think it would be a great tragedy to lose what we have if we're going in the wrong.
You're 100% correct, and I will tell you that you're absolutely right. This is an effort to privatize. Here's the problem, though. Most of it's like to get out of the VA. At least they did. Um, it's being hollowed out. It got hollowed out by Doge. It's being hollowed out by Secretary Collins as we speak, and it's not good. And so we're going to privatize it. And what did the big beautiful bill do? It's going to put a lot of these rural hospitals out of business. I mean, that's not a statement that I say with a lot of pride, quite frankly, because my small town hospital may be one of them. And so, where are the veterans going to go? They're not going to get health care at all. And quite frankly, many of these veterans have more than one thing wrong with them. They have multiple issues, and quite honestly, the VA is the best place to take care of a lot of those issues, especially if you need prosthetics, if you need mental health treatment, all those things. The VA is better prepared than any private hospital is for it. That's a blanket statement. It's a tough statement to make, but the truth is there's going to be no health care for them to get in the private sector after they privatize it. Thanks for your service. That's it.
Any other questions? Looks like it.
He threw the microphone at me. We want to thank you all for being with us in person. Before we go, though, we do something at the end of every episode, literally because of a hat that former Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney gave John Tester. And early on, we started this podcast in February, mostly because I kind of said, "Hey, we're both out of a job. Should we start a podcast?" And John Tester said, "Sure, only if we make millions." But we're still waiting on that. But he wore a hat. What's the number?
3562.
He had a hat one day. It said 3562, and kind of at the end, what is that? What is 3562? And
It's the number of votes I won my first general election by.
Mike Cooney had that made for him. And so it started this thing because John Tester said, "I have bags and bags of hundreds of hats that people give him."
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
And you wear Olympia
Well,
lights.
he wears a different hat every episode so we can ask about the hat. So tell us about your hat, Senator. What year is
Probably about 72, 1972. Yeah, and I think it's this thing on here. Yeah, it's an Ole hat, and the reason I wore it is because I knew Bullock didn't have any Olympia beer on the board in his bar.
We do have Rainier, though.
So that's what I wore.
Okay, so we wanna thank everybody for joining in. Our guests, former Montana Governor Steve Bullock, Jeff Mangan, leading this, initiative, the Montana Plan. Go check it out. And, we wanna thank Pearl Jam, who lets us use their music, which I still can't believe every time I say that. Thanks
True.
to, Jeff, another Montana guy. And thank all of you for being with us both in person and online. You can find us on Substack, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, and is that all I have? See you next time.
Allie Hunt.